Hey, I'm Cameron. Welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. We're going to take advantage of the cooler temps this morning, get our summer fertilizing done. Let's get busy. Fertilizing your orchard is or your plants is one of the more confusing things. You know, you put the fertilizer down, but you're not always quite sure if it took, what did it really do, what would have happened without it. You know, pruning is very clear. You cut that thing off and you're able to see some growth come out, but how much difference did the fertilizer actually make? Well, plants, just like people, do better when we're fed and fed all the nutrients that we need. And so there are 3 main times a year that we do fertilizing in the orchard here. We do it at the end of January or very beginning of February, the beginning of April, and what's supposed to be at the end of June, no later than that, at least in Southern California. Now, I was gone at the end of June. I didn't get back to the middle of July, and then it's been so hot and busy. Plus, I've been wanting to make this video, so I've put it off. It's now the middle of August. So I'm torn on what to do here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to fertilize maybe like 3/4. Part of the reason you don't want to fertilize too much as it's getting near the time of dormancy is because you want these trees to be able to fully, especially those deciduous where the leaves fall off, you want them to be able to fully enter dormancy, get the rest they need, so that way they have a good and productive fruiting session the next season. So I kind of missed my window a little bit, but hey, getting some food on these trees is going to be better than not giving them the nutrients they need. So we're going to talk about a couple of new things that I'm doing this season as well. If you've watched my spring feeding or winter feeding, you can tell how much growth this orchard has had in just the last few months. I mean, that nectarine over there, that Arctic Glow and Arctic Star nectarines are just, look at that, like 12 feet tall. They're humongous. I'm gonna do another video on summer pruning coming up. But that's kind of the exciting thing. The only way that these trees are able to grow is by having the nutrients that they need. You know, you eat your nutrients and you get big and strong. One thing that does some of that is this mulch. You know, I've got a good strong mulch layer, so as that breaks down, the organic material goes down and feeds the trees, but it doesn't always have all of the nutrients that trees do well with. We've got those main 3 numbers, those NPK, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, or nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. K is the potassium, and each of those do a different thing for the tree. This orchard has kind of blown up in a lot of ways, in a good way. Over here, our stone fruit, a bunch of our different stone fruit are here doing really well, and excited to have harvested. We had like a couple 100 pounds of plums off of our Santa Rosa plum over there. Broke some branches. Our flavor grenade pluot is on right now. Let's walk over there. I'm gonna eat some of that. All right, you see this here? This thing is still loaded with fruit. We've picked off, I don't know, 20 pounds of it so far. Look at this, flavor grenade pluot. It's a plum apricot hybrid. It's amazing because it grows, it hangs on the tree for several weeks and is crunchy, unlike a plum, you know, which a plum gets kind of, it's a trade-off between, if you've got a firm fruit, something that's kind of crunchy, usually it's not sweet and it's a little bit tangy. Or the opposite, if it's very sweet, usually it's very mushy. Flavor grenade pluot is really unique in that when you take a bite of it, it's crunchy and yet it's very sweet and juicy. This is a really good piece of fruit. It's tasty when it's not even fully yet ripe, but the more it ripens, this just turns into like middle of August here this season. This is like prime time for this fruit right now. So good. So this is a question, is like, what part does the fertilizing play in this tasty fruit production? Well, it plays a lot. How do you think it is able to get the material to pump this stuff out and do it in a way that's healthy? But that's not the only thing. Mulching, you know, is the plant stressed? Is it getting enough sunlight getting on that fruit and helping it to ripen well? Is it getting decent airflow so that there aren't these diseases happening through? Is the watering okay? Is it in a location where the soil isn't causing some sort of issues? So all of those things, to the extent that you're able to control some of those, or as many of those as you control, the better chance you obviously have of getting a tasty piece of fruit like this. I'm excited this year. My Parfianca pomegranate is loaded with fruit. Wonderful pomegranate, loaded with fruit. You saw our flavor grenade Pluot. I mean, a bunch of these have already given their fruit. Tried for the first time this year, this Candy Heart Blueberry. We ate all of them off because I only left a few on for the first season of growing. What an amazing piece of fruit that was. Oh my goodness, look what I just saw down there. Look what I see down there. This is my 4-in-1 pear combo. Let's go and look. Well, the thing that I'm going to use to fertilize is the same kind of thing that I use during the other growing seasons, and that's my fallback, my Grow Power 3-12-12. 3 is that nitrogen number, and that's a lot lower than usually you see in these formulations. And the 12 is the phosphorus and the potassium, and that's going to support root growth, flowering, fruiting, giving the plant all it needs for the kind of general health of the plant. Whereas the nitrogen is what contributes to that big boom of growth. And so for most of these trees, like this huge nectarine here, I don't need any more nitrogen on it. I don't want it to grow any faster. I want it to have the nutrients that it needs. It needs some nitrogen, but I don't want to give it a ton of nitrogen to boom. So this 3-12-12 for this style orchard, backyard orchard culture, where we're trying to keep our heights lower, one way to control it is through pruning. Another way to control it is through limiting the nitrogen that I'm adding to it. So that's going to go great on our established trees. Now on the other hand, what about those young trees, those trees where we want some vegetative growth, where we want it to develop those strong scaffold and structure, we want some leafiness. You want to increase the nitrogen number, so that first number, instead of 3-12-12, I want to use a more balanced fertilizer like this 16-16-16 or this Osmocote, which I think is 15-9-12. A lot higher nitrogen content on those younger plants. And I noticed that some of these plants could use an extra flush of growth. My avocados, for example, need a bit more growth. Another one here is this wonderful Ivy Organic that Charles brought me. This is going to do great, could do great up here. It has all of the macronutrients. It has NPK, but it also has magnesium, sulfur, and calcium. This Osmocote does too. This is not as granular, it's more of a powder. It's dissolved in water. So this I'm going to use on my garden down there, my vegetable garden. It's going to go great going through there in a watering can. Whereas these granular feeds can just be thrown around easily, kind of at the bottom of these trees. Ivy Organic can do that too. I've just got so many trees that I don't want to mix up the solution for it. At least this time, I might do that on some of the smaller ones that really need the boost. So, that being said, let's get this stuff under the trees. Okay, reminder: this 3-12-12. They're saying to use 2 tablespoons for every foot of tree height. Now I'm going to do something different in the summer feeding than I would in the spring feeding. Normally you take into account the entire height, combined height of the tree grouping, okay? So like if you have 3 trees and they're 6 feet each, then you count it out as it's 18 feet of tree size. And so I'd do, what is that, 36 tablespoons of feed for that grouping. Now I'm looking at this Arctic Star and this Double Delight Nectarine. My nectarine grouping is seriously 12 feet tall, and that's times 2 or 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be cutting that way down, and because I'm going to be doing summer pruning, this summer feeding, I'm going to keep in mind my eventual height. So it's a little different. I'm not looking at how tall it is right now. I'm looking at how tall it's going to be once I get done with my pruning. So I'm not going to put as much feed as I would in the spring. I'm taking not into account how tall the tree is now, but how tall the tree will be as soon as I'm done with the pruning in like a week. So that's going to inform it. But I'm going to just get on here and start throwing this stuff on. In my rush to get out here, I almost forgot to grab my spreader. This is so convenient. I'm going to put a link to this and a couple of the other fertilizers that I got. I'm going to put the link to those online. I also forgot to mention that the Osmocote and the 16-16-16, if I end up using some of those, I'm going to use those in the same measurements, same amounts as I am the 3-12-12, because the formulations are fairly similar, and so I'm going to be doing 2 tablespoons, in this case, per foot of tree height, and doing that around. So this is going to come in super handy for getting this many trees fed quickly. Okay, something I'm also doing right now is I'm actually mixing the 3-12-12 with the triple 16 because I'm wanting a bit more nitrogen on these citrus plants, but I also want all these micronutrients that are available in the Osmocote or in the 3-12-12. So I'm mixing the two, bringing up the nitrogen content by like 50%, so that way the citrus and the avocados, they need a bit more nitrogen, and these are going to have an eventual height that's going to be limited by the size of the tree, not by my pruning in this case. So that's what I did. So I just fed my navel oranges, my blood oranges, my tangerines or mandarins, my nectar plum, peaches, nectarines, Asian pear, figs, and one of my 3-in-1 apple combos. All on this row, fed and ready to go. Okay, now we're gonna feed the jujube, the weird citrus, grapefruit combo, our Honeycrisp apple, our giant Fuyu persimmon. We got another 3-in-1 apple. Then we're gonna feed all of our cherries, and we've got this one dwarf avocado that I'm gonna feed. Feed them up. Okay, now we're gonna go over here. We're gonna do our avocados, we're gonna do our banana plant, we're gonna do some more avocados, lemon lime combo, mango, and passion fruit. Let's do it. Okay, now let's go get those pomegranates and some of these other stone fruit, all my plums and apricot and all that stuff. Let's get started with these guys. Wow, I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Busy Gardener, where we went and fed all of the trees in this orchard. Hopefully gave you a couple of ideas on how you might do that in your orchard with your fruit trees or plants. It's really not as mysterious as you think. It's easy to want to get it exactly right, and yet it's just got to be close. It's kind of like feeding us. Are we giving ourselves exactly the calorie content that we need? Are we giving ourselves exactly the nutrient content? No, I mean, look, these trees are designed to live. All we're trying to do is give them that extra boost, give them everything that they need, so that way they feel really happy and give us lots of fruit, which makes us really happy. Hey, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, would you take a second and do that? Maybe share it, like it. Love when you do that. I love your questions and comments below. Really love engaging with you guys and hearing what's going on in your world, what's worked for you. Maybe you got some tips that you're seeing that I'm doing here that I could do a little differently. It might help other people watching the video. Anyway, appreciate you tuning in, whether you got 1 tree in your orchard, 500. Till next time, stay busy.